All right, welcome. My name is Ali Mariani, and I'm here with Rudra Mitra, Rudy, who runs our engineering team. And we're here today to talk to you about security and compliance in Office 365, and specifically to sort of leave you with two things. The first is to tell you a little bit about our approach, how we're thinking about this from a problem space perspective. And then the second is we're going to show you some of the highlights of what we're doing. We have a lot of other sessions happening this week where we can go deeper on those technologies. Now, before we start, I want to get a show of hands. How many of you are in a security role or in the security department of your organization? Okay, about 3/4 of you. Awesome. So we'll be able to go deep on some of the things that can hopefully be helpful to your organization. But before we do that, I always have this question I like to ask the audience. So you've got these two people up here. And can anyone tell me which one is a hacker? People in the front row can answer because I know you work on security. But which one's a hacker? The one on the right? Okay. How many people think the one on the right? Okay, one on the left? Both of them are, right? Okay, trick question. Awesome. So the one on the right, how would she become a hacker, right? How many of you subscribe to some sort of online streaming service like Netflix or Amazon for movies and TV? Okay, great. So you can go on the dark web and subscribe to ransomware, right? That can turn anybody into a hacker, right? On the left, again, you look at that person, you think about the physical characteristics, but as many of you know, ransomware and what's happening around sort of external threats in general has evolved quite a bit. In fact, to the point where you had individuals that were doing this, and then it became teams of hackers that were motivated by money, if you will, and then even now nation states. And in fact, Rudy and I think it was about a year and a half ago, we were at the Gartner Security Summit, and I can't remember, it was like a Tuesday or something, and we had to take a call. We're the people that get called when something bad happens to a potential customer or a customer. And this person, who is the Chief Information Security Officer of a manufacturing company, not a financial services or healthcare, said, hey, I got a call, and they're based in Europe, from my version of what is your NSA, the National Security Agency. And they told me that my network was under attack, and it was backed by the Chinese government, right? And he was like, what do I do, right? And of course, so Rudy assembled this whole team. We put ATP in place. We did some reporting for them. But that's the kind of problem or problems that people are dealing with today. It's much more sophisticated. How many of you attended Julia White's security session? Any of you? Okay, a few people. She had this stat. It said 97% of malware is polymorphic. Right? So that's basically all malware at this point. And so these are the kind of things that we're dealing with today. So we're not going to just talk about external threats. We're also going to talk about how you protect your information. But this informs a lot of what our approach is to how we think about security and compliance in Office 365. So real quick, we sort of have these three pillars of our approach. And this will be in a bunch of other sessions, so I won't spend too much time on this. But platform, and that's where we're going to spend a bulk of our time today, is how are we building things into the platform? From a Microsoft perspective, that means Windows, that means Azure, that means Office 365. Intelligence, how are we harnessing that great AI we've been using in other spaces and applying that to security? We'll talk a little bit about this thing called the Intelligent Security Graph. And then partners. No partner or no person or no organization can do it alone. So how are we partnering with both organizations that also offer security services, but with governments, with other agencies, to make sure that data privacy and security is at the highest level it can be? So we're going to spend some time on a few areas of focus here. As we think about innovating in Office 365, there's sort of these four pillars of security and then compliance from the perspective of where our investments sit. There's identity protection and access. So that involves things like, sort of multi-factor authentication, how you do conditional access to certain data. There's threat protection, which involves, again, the malware and some of the stuff we talked about from an external threats perspective. Information protection, how are you preventing that information from leaving your organization? Or when it does, like when you have to communicate with a customer, how are you protecting that data in the way it should be? And then security management, how do you look across everything and see what's happening in your estate? And then last but not least, related to security is compliance. How many of you are familiar with the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR? Okay, a bunch of you, right? This is sort of where that overlap, data privacy, compliance comes into play. So what are our areas of focus? The first is we're looking at how we can apply intelligence to more parts of our systems to actually innovate and to stay ahead of these hackers and these information protection issues. The second is how do we build things into the system to reduce the cost of ownership and really the burden on you for running these applications or these security protocols. And we'll spend some time talking about that. And then last but not least is we realize that all of your data isn't just in Office 365, but it's in other places. And so how do we start to extend that protection, that compliance, beyond just what's in Office 365? So with that, I'd like to bring up Rudy, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the products we have and then innovation in those areas along with our approach.
Thanks, Salim. Can you guys hear me okay in the back? Great.
And by the way, I will say that you're going to see a lot of new stuff here. So we've prayed to the demo gods. It's all like first release stuff, but we don't know if they're going to show up. So we'll see what happens.
Great. So as Salim mentioned, thinking about how intelligence, how TCO, and extending to M365 with Office 365 protection has been a really core focus area for a set of focus areas for the team over the last year. And we've put a lot of work into, as you can see, all of our product lines inside information protection to make sure these three sort of key focus areas show up. And there's a lot of updates to talk about today. So again, Alim referenced, we'll go demo heavy instead of a lot of slideware in this session. There's a lot of content to cover. And so what we'll do is we'll just go through these demos quickly, pull back the curtains, show you what's been going on. Team's been working very hard on this. And then there's a lot of sessions that are queued up through the rest of this week that you can go to dig into each of these product lines much more deeply and find out a lot more of the specifics. Before we go on, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask the engineering team that's here with me to stand up for a second so that you guys can see who to reach out to, both after the session and in the product sessions. They can handle all the hard questions. As well as recognize the immense amounts of effort that's gone into this work over the last year. We're trying to provide value to you in 365 super quickly, built into the service, integrated, and really taking intelligence from the cloud and helping you with your individual organization so that you're not in the security and compliance space by yourself. Okay. So talking about threat protection, this is the area where we think about commodity malware, commodity phish, and protecting you against those, but also across the Office 365 ecosystem, SharePoint, Teams, how do we think about advanced malware, advanced ransomware, advanced phishing attacks, and then, of course, threat intelligence so that you can proactively plan for going after and protecting your users. And so really enabling a protect, detect, respond strategy here across your service infrastructure. I'll throw up this stat real quick before we jump into this. So for some of you folks, I see some faces that I've seen at Ignite over the last couple of years as we started to introduce advanced threat protection in Office 365. And we were really just getting going on that. So today, I'm really excited to share with you that Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection is the most used advanced protection sort of capabilities that we have in the service. And when you think about it relative to all the other competitors in the service that are there, we are more than all of them combined, and then of course 3 times larger in the number of seats that we protect today than our closest, largest competitor. So this gives you a sense of the number of seats in Office 365 that are already today protected by advanced threat protection. So if you're new to Office 365, or if you're on Office 365 but wondering how to better protect yourself with phishing, better protect yourself with advanced malware, you need to take a look at this. It's the fastest growing security service that we have connected to 365 today. So with that, I'll pause, and Phil's going to walk us through a set of demos, and we'll circle back with all the new stuff you see here.
Good morning. I want to talk to you about some of the improvements that we've made in our protection and intelligence systems that touch on a lot of the themes that these guys mentioned earlier. So the first thing that I have here is a pretty common scenario. We have an Excel workbook that I'm sending. I want someone to review it. It's urgent. I'm going to send this out. And one of the problems that we have with advanced threat protection is that the more work you do to make sure something is safe, the longer it takes. And there's this struggle between productivity and security that we face. And we've heard that from a lot of our customers. So in response, while I'm sending this attachment out, and this attachment's getting scanned by our advanced scanning system that's standing up a virtual machine and running whatever code might be in it, I want to show you what the end user experience is for that. My session might be a little sleepy here, so let me just kick it a little bit. Well, unfortunately, it's kind of being a little shy for me, so I'll show you what happens. The email gets immediately delivered with a placeholder, and what we've done is we've created a preview of that document. So what used to happen was we'd send the document out, we'd say, please review this right now, but we're not going to show you the document yet. So what we've done is we've stripped all the potentially malicious stuff out of it, showing you a preview here right in the browser of what the document looks like while scanning is still going on, and if there's some macros or some other things that you need later, that will get reattached to the email. The other, oh, thank you. So here's another one. This is a phishing campaign, and it's kind of hard to see, but it pretty much says, you know, this is a reminder to go fill out a survey, and it has fancy words like our listening system. Like, it's a pretty good one when you look at it because it seems pretty legit. But kind of along the theme of enabling end users and using cloud intelligence, we've put a tip on here that says you don't often get email from this address, and this sender, the sender or the address looks a lot like someone that you have received email from before, a common spoofing technique that phishers use if they want to get into your mailbox. The other thing that you'll notice here is we've put this question mark next to the person, so instead of just showing the picture of the person that they're spoofing, we're telling you that we don't know who this person is. So we've brought a lot of these little tips in using the intelligence that we have in the cloud to help end users be more aware of what's going on in their email. Now, this is one that came through a little bit earlier, and we delivered it. So obviously, we didn't know it was bad, or it wasn't bad at the time of delivery. But with ATP, if we click on a link, we have click time protection that will block clicks to these URLs when they come through. Now, the URL, you know, this mail is in the inbox, right? So it got here. We have capabilities to report the mail as junk or phishing. Or if I bring it up in Outlook, we have this Outlook add-in now that lets users say, this is a phishing mail. And historically, that data has come to Microsoft, and we've used it to train our machine learning systems and to give it to our spam analysts so we can author new rules and do new blocks. But for the first time ever, we're bringing that information to admins and security teams so that they can be aware of what they're seeing in their organization. So I'm going to switch hats now to the admin hat and bring you into the Security and Compliance Center. This is where a lot of the new features that we built are lighting up. And I'm landing in the dashboard threat management section. And I want to call out a few of the improvements that we've made here before we go look for that user-reported phish that we just did. So I'm going to zoom in on these insights. Again, along the themes of insights from intelligence, there's two that I'm pointing out here. So one is, actually I want these two here. Phishing email delivered due to an allowed domain. So Exchange is obviously pretty complicated. There's lots of settings that you have, and it's really difficult sometimes to understand if the settings that you've put in place are actually doing the right thing that you expect them to. So what we're saying here is phishing email was delivered in spite of us knowing it was phish because you have an allowed domain, and then spam delivered because of a mail flow rule. So the idea with this is we're calling out specific changes that you can make to improve your security posture. Now I'm going to go into our Explorer, our Threat Explorer, and we're going to go find that submission and show how we can respond to phishing attacks in Office 365. The view that you're looking here is what we launched earlier this year, and it was mostly focused on malware trends and helping you understand what's going on, who's targeted in your organization. If you look, you can kind of see campaigns happening with the different colors on here. But we've expanded the capabilities in our Threat Explorer to include a lot of different stuff, not just email malware threats. We've expanded it to phishing, end user reports, even to SharePoint stuff. So if we catch malware in SharePoint, now we're going to show it to you here so you can find out how did it get there. Is someone trying to distribute malware through SharePoint? Or is it just my analysts that are keeping samples there? The other thing that we have on here is activity that isn't necessarily a file, like risky user activity, things like mailbox forwarding rules being added. We've brought all of this into one UI that you can kind of pivot from one view to the other and really understand attacks as they happen. I'm going to go and look at the user-submitted emails here. And so here, this is a view kind of like the previous one, but instead of malware messages, it's individual user reports in your organization that are either phish or malware or junk. Those are the different colors. But I want to go find the one that we just did. So I'll go look at submission type as phish. And then I know that the account I did it from was this admin account. So if I click on this, you'll see, OK, so this is a user in my organization submitted this complete your survey as phish. I have the option to download the message if I haven't seen it before to confirm that it's a phish. But what's really cool is in the details, we're starting to pull out metadata that really helps you with your investigation. So you can see here we have what are the URLs in that email. We've pulled them right out. Naturally, the next question you have is, well, who else got this, right? 1 of my users or 10 of my users submitted it to me. Now I want to know what are all the email messages that have this URL in my organization. So that brings us right into some of our new views around URLs. So you can see now in the filter, we've set show me all emails where the URL is this fabricam/survey. And you can see now in the top chart all the emails. It looks like there was one on the 24th, and then there was a whole bunch yesterday. That there was 14 delivered and 229 that were blocked. But then your next natural question is, OK, for the ones that were delivered, who clicked? So that's this bottom chart here. So these are the clicks that happened on those emails. And if I go and pivot this by click verdict instead, you can see which clicks were allowed by ATP versus which clicks were missed, or were blocked, rather. And the cool thing with this is if you find one of these before we even know about it, you can pick a URL. You can just hit block clicks right away. So you can stop the bleeding before you get much damage. The other cool thing is you can actually go and delete all the mails. So I'm looking at a list of all the emails that make up this chart. And I can add them to a container called an incident where you can track them and do actions like delete them, move them to junk to really stop the bleeding. So there was one last thing I wanted to show you with this, which is around intelligence and around who are the people. So we find often when there's targeted campaigns, and you look at who they hit, and they're like, oh, it all hit people in my finance department or my operations department, something like that. So we've created some new capabilities around users. So I'm looking now at these emails. Instead of pivoting it by whether was it delivered or not, I'm pivoting by what's the classification of that user. Have I tagged them as an HV or high-value employee? Another option that I have is I can go and say, show me by department that these people work in. And I can see that this phishing campaign hit mostly people that worked in marketing. So what we're doing is we're ingesting these properties from Active Directory and joining them into our Mailflow data and our analytics system to really help you understand these campaigns. And along those lines, one last hint at some stuff that we're going to talk about in the threat intelligence session a little bit later on is how we're creating this concept of trackers. And trackers let you track things that change over time. They let you see what's in the news. But one of the really cool things is we're clustering on these people properties to try to find clusters that we think are especially interesting to you here. So right here, we're looking at this same HV, high-value employee cluster, that we've detected as something that's interesting because a lot of the population of that phishing campaign was high-value employees. And you click on that, and you can see right away what were the emails, what were the clicks. It brings you right there. So that was just a quick view into the changes in our protection system and how they really tie into the themes that Aleem and Rudy were mentioning about cloud-powered insights and reducing total cost of ownership for Office 365. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Phil. So Phil ran through a lot of stuff there really quickly, and I'll just do a quick highlight of some of the new things that you saw in the demo. And then, of course, as Phil said, there's a bunch of sessions where you can dig into these. So there's the new security dashboard where you saw all the centralized management around submissions, around rules and blocking. There's the insights where you saw the updates that the admin gets in terms of where are we tracking a campaign, who's getting it, and then, of course, remediation that you can kick right off from there. In the advanced threat protection space, you saw a bunch of stuff that is lighting up between now and the end of the year around phishing. It's one of the hottest sort of exploited areas right now, continues to be pushed on very hard by hackers. And so, of course, we're coming at it with a lot of cloud intelligence-backed capabilities. You saw that SharePoint and OneDrive, when especially you're using them for external collaboration with vendors, partners, your ecosystem of companies. That's another vector in and out for malware. So we're going after that in a big way. And then one of our highly requested feature sets is safe links wrapping within ATP internal to the organization. We've got that coming out this year as well. You saw the threat tracker. If there's persistent threats you want to track against your organization, you can also see insights about them. You can see the people, the department, really arming you with a rich set of tools to be able to respond around these campaigns and these attacks. So heading off into the next section, information protection, this is where beyond threats, we think about the life cycle of your data and how you have a proactive and monitor-based approach to your sensitive data, your high-value data. And for Microsoft, we think about this around a detect, classify, protect, and monitor scheme. And so what we'll walk you through today, and there's a bunch of other sessions around this, is about not just doing this for your data in 365, although Alex will focus in on the capabilities in 365. You want to think about this as part of an overall strategy, both in 365, as well as your data in Azure, in Windows, your third-party business apps, your on-premises servers, if you have those, your file shares. We think of this as holistically needing to be protected and providing you with the tools across our services that walk you through this. One quick stat before we head into the demos and see a lot of interesting new stuff Alex has brought today is the classification, which typically has been thought about as a DLP scheme, leakage protection, but actually is much more generically applicable as being able to sort through your high-value data, your sensitive data, your non-sensitive data. We're just seeing a tremendous amount of proactive deployment of policy around this. So in the cloud, over the last few months, we've seen a 6x increase in the number of tenants that have deployed some sort of rules to protect their classification data. And then, of course, the number of users, the number of seats that they're protecting with this. Because you're thinking about a scheme where, Aleem's data, which of it is high value, which of it's not, preventing it from going out. As the workforce becomes more mobile, as the boundaries sort of kind of melt away, really, 7.5 times increase in the number of tenants there. So people are getting proactive about classifying their data. And you'll see as we wrap up the session, GDPR and local policy is really driving a lot of this proactive approach that folks need to take. So take it away, Alex.
All right, awesome. Thanks.
Switch.
Can you guys hear me? Hi, my name is Alex Lee, and I'm on the product team just like Rudy and Phil. And today I'm really excited to be sharing with you some new functionality we brought to Office 365 IP. Now, we've talked to a lot of customers over their years, and a lot of the different problems we've heard about really instills into three main pieces. Now, how many of you guys are familiar with the Office 365 labeling concept, or the AIP labels? Yep, a good show of hands. Okay, so one of the issues we've heard a lot from customers. Eight. While that's being worked out. One of the pieces of feedback we've heard from customers is with our existing implementation of labels, we require multiple solutions to apply security compliance protection, ranging from being able to retain, protect, and also across the multiple ecosystems. Now, these multiple products result in the admins and also the end users needing to be trained in these multiple different solutions, which creates a very complex system for the admins and also end users to use. The second piece of the feedback we've heard is around inconsistent classification. Office 365 labels may detect something as confidential or highly confidential, while other systems and other SaaS applications detect other pieces as confidential. How is the tenant admin supposed to be able to rationalize, depending on where their data is, what is confidential to their system? And the last piece of feedback we've heard very often is around usability issues. That being, end users want to be seamlessly protected. They don't want to have to go into some clunky add-in UX and have to be able to figure out whether they should retain their document for 9 years, 7 years, how to encrypt. So we've heard these common asks, and today I'm really excited to announce that with Office 365 information protection, we're solving these problems for you. We're going to be meeting the requirements for protection and retention across all platforms. I'm going to be demoing to you shortly a single way for your admins to be able to create labels that apply both security and compliance protection actions in a single way. And these labels will be able to persist and also be used across different heterogeneous platforms and systems beyond the scope of just Microsoft products and Office 365. The next piece I will be demoing is the ability to have one classification platform and being able to enforce the requirements. And then finally, we're also going to demo a coherent and simplified labeling experience inside some of the native clients. So let's jump to the demos. So I'm logged in as Sarah, my admin at Fabricam. I'm inside of the Security and Compliance Center. And what I've done here is I've created a highly confidential label. So what we previously had was we were able to, inside of Office 365, configure retention actions on this label, and we can still do that today. But in addition to that, we're also able to add DLP policy actions, such as being able to block your users from sharing externally. We also have brought in the capability to show your end users policy tips, the rich native end user notifications that is very specific to our Office 365 system. We've also brought in the advanced protection of content. What this allows your admins to do is encrypt and protect your content along with applying DLP policies and also the retention actions. So what I've configured inside of my highly confidential label is the ability to encrypt the document for external users. And finally, the last piece I want to show here is we also added advanced options in order to have visual cues show up natively in the different Office clients. So as you see here, I've configured a watermark, a header, and also a footer within my label. What that means is, as I demo the end user experience shortly, when I label a document as highly confidential, I'll be able to seamlessly, as the end user, see the advanced options of the visual cues. In addition to that, I will be also protected. One other piece I did want to mention is that we are also bringing the ability to look for sensitive information types, and this is integrated with the DLP system that we already have inside of Office 365. So what that means is within the label, you'll be able to check for our out-of-box sensitive information types. You'll also be able to check for the custom types that we already support within our system. And this is our method of bringing one classification platform to our customers. So with that, I'm going to jump into my end user experience. So this is something new that we are just demoing to you guys. This is brand new bits. What we see here is I'm working inside of my Mac Word, and we've heard a lot of feedback that Mac is important to your customers. And so the first thing we've done is we've done the native integration of labelings inside of Mac. And what you see here is when I previously configured my confidential or highly confidential label, I'm now able to apply that label very simply inside of my Mac Word client. And this is actually natively integrated into my client. There's nothing I have to download or an add-in I have to roll out to my end users. By clicking this highly confidential label manually within my system, I'm able to see as an end user the visual cues that I configured as an admin. So you can see here I have highly confidential as a watermark, and I also see header footer. In addition to that, I'm also able to see the fact that this was marked as highly confidential. And if I view my permissions, I see that I'm also protected. So when I do share this content externally, only folks internally will have the ability to view this document with these permissions. So the next piece I'm going to show is I'm going to actually upload this document to my SharePoint site, and I've done that already. And what I'm showing here is with my highly confidential document I was previously working on, when I've uploaded a document to SharePoint, I see that the highly confidential label I just put on my document also now persists inside of SharePoint. So this is very great because previously it had to be configured. Now it's all seamless. Once I upload the document, the system will be able to detect that the document was manually labeled. We also have the ability to automatically label. But for just the purpose of my demo, I've done a manual labeling. So now let's take a look at how not only we've integrated labels with the native Office clients, we've also integrated labels with DLP and also our new feature that we're announcing, Office 365 message encryption. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm Sarah, I'm an end user. I'm going to be working with someone named Alex. And as you see here, it auto-completed to an external email address. I'm just going to continue with my work for now and see what happens. I'm also going to be collaborating with Katie. And what I want to do is I want to attach my confidential document that I was previously working on. And you see how fast that was. Once I uploaded and attached that highly confidential document I just labeled within my Mac client, I'm able to see a policy tip, and this is the piece that ties back to the admin configuration I showed at the beginning of this demo. So now I'm able to see the policy tip shows that the content has been labeled as highly confidential, and it should not be shared with external users. So this is actually very powerful because we're able to notify and warn the end users prior to the data leak. Now you may ask, what happens if I'm not using a native client or an enlightened client? What if I'm using, a down-level client or something that doesn't support DLP policy tips? Well, let's go ahead and send this mail and see what happens. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in to my external user's account for Gmail. I'm going to wait for the document to be sent. We'll give it a second. Once I see this, this is my experience of what happens when I receive the email. I'll click read the message. It'll take a little bit. But what I expect to see once I click the read the message is that the protection actions I've set in place inside of my admin console will now also work inside of Office 365 message encryption. And I'm just going to click to this. What the experience would be is that it would show that I don't have permissions to view this message because in my configuration for my label policy, I enabled it to not have permissions for the external users. So even if I accidentally send the email to an external user, the Office 365 system is able to protect beyond the Office 365 boundary. And you see here, I'm also protected inside of Gmail. Now, let's take a look at what happens when I am inside of my organization. So previously, if I was Katie and I was sharing sensitive content that's encrypted with my other partner, Sarah, I would have to log in and be able then only to see the encrypted message. Now what we've done with Office 365 message encryption is inside of the different clients, if you're talking internally within an organization, we automatically encrypt the document so you can see the content in line. There was no login, it seamlessly just works. So with that, I think I end my demo. I just wanted to recap the 3 main points we've talked about. One is reducing the cost for admins to configure their policies. They're now able to, inside of the Security and Compliance Center, create a single set of labels that can also persist across the Office 365 boundary into Microsoft Cloud App Security and also AIP Admin Console. And admins can be able to protect their labels in one seamless way and their content. The second piece we talked about was the native integration into the different Office clients. And of course, Windows and mobile will also be coming shortly. And then finally, what I showed is the native integration of DLP, Office 365 message encryption, and also the labeling concept, and being able to use all these pieces seamlessly within our system. Back to Rudy.
Thanks, Alex. That was awesome. So Alex showed a lot of stuff there. I mean, she had it all stitched together in a scenario, but there was a ton of different pieces there. So I'm going to just quickly call out some of the salient ones that were there, and then, of course, there's sessions to follow up on some of these things. So if you're using Azure Information Protection today, and you're using labeling and protection out of that, you're already a fan, and you're already you have a strategy around data classification, data labeling. And what she walked you through is coming soon, just given the uptake we've seen on that service, and the number of people that are excited about it, you're going to start seeing these capabilities come into Office as well. And then, of course, with Azure, you can protect the same data across your other SaaS apps, your on-premises topologies, your hybrid topologies. You can do that. So really a comprehensive story there from Microsoft in terms of protecting your data. And then, of course, the entire demo was run on a Mac, implying that this is not just a Windows first story. It's a story that goes across Mac and web and Office as well. OK. The second piece that she showed you was with data loss prevention. We have oops, too many clicks, sorry. We have, of course, updated a number of the sensitive types we have in the box. You have a number of more complicated sensitive types that you can choose to deploy, as well as large dictionary support, really kind of rounding out the ability to do DLP protection, or more holistically, using your classification in conjunction with a labeling story, with an encryption story, with a protection story, a visual story, if that's what your protection story is. And then with the newly announced messaging encryption capabilities, you've got the end user controls. It was awesome to see the encryption carry over to a third-party service from Microsoft. So that was Gmail, and we've worked with this federation with a number of other services so that the rights management that was given to that mail now not only works within the Office 365 and the Microsoft bubble, it carries over really to your other services that users or customers may be on. And we're very excited about that. And then, of course, you can do your own key that you bring to 365 with all of this stuff. So the encryption can be grounded in the key that either you provide to us or whether you're using one of our keys. So a lot of stuff that was in there. All right. So changing gears, as you can tell by the new demo who's on stage, we're now going to head off into our third pillar of product line, which is our security and compliance management. And this I think about as the set of capabilities within 365 that provide you an administration plane to do your security and your compliance management. So where are you setting up your policies? Where are you doing the administration? Where are you seeing your reports? And so what we'll see here is, again, the same intelligence, the same M365 sort of cross-service view showing up into our management capabilities. I'll just show another stat here that I think really is powerful for us. So last year at about this time frame, we had started talking to you guys about secure score. And it's this notion of if you start to use our controls, we can start to sort of determine, again, with that cloud intelligence back for you, how secure really is your tenant? How well are you doing with the controls we give you to really have a holistic story in terms of protecting your tenancy and your users? And on average, we're now finding, after we've got some run rate on this, we're finding that the tenants that are starting to explore secure score, they're typically deploying a lot more controls in a holistic way and are overall much more holistically secure than sort of the tenants that are picking policies one and done, or picking these things one off and working through it. So it really helps them plan that strategy. So I'd really encourage you, whether you're new to 365 or sort of have been with us for a while, that you go try the secure score, see how you kind of rate on this, and then follow some of the steps that it leads you down with the controls that are built in. So with that, Sumit's going to again take you through a story about managing your tenancy, and there's a bunch of new stuff here again, so take it away, Sumit. Thanks, Rudy.
Can you guys hear me? Awesome. As Rudra mentioned, the focus of the demos that I'm going to give you today is going to be on admin productivity and how we're trying to get that to a higher bar, as well as the effectiveness. So all of this, by the way, is powered by our ability to take signals across Office 365 and beyond, powered by cloud intelligence. So that's a lot of words. I'm going to try and break that down into a few features that we've been working on. So what you have in front of you here is I'm logged in as an admin on one of my tenants, and fueled right out of the box from the Security and Compliance Center are these weekly digests that show up for me for review. So I'm looking at an example of a weekly digest that's specific to compliance. And what you can see in here is it gives me a snapshot of all the data loss prevention policy matches for my tenant. And what's interesting in here is not only are you seeing this for Exchange, but you're also seeing this for SharePoint and OneDrive. So we've kind of consolidated that one Office view for you right here within the digest itself. Naturally, as an admin, you're going to want to dig in and see, okay, what's happening in my tenant? And so we've deep linked this with the actual report within the Security and Compliance Center, which is really becoming our home for administrative activity within Office. And once you click on the relevant report, you're going to see that in addition to seeing the same visual that you saw in the email, we've got some actual insights and recommendations that we want you to prioritize and focus on as an admin. Again, focused on productivity and effectiveness. And so you can access those insights by clicking on some of the indicators in the visual, or by leveraging some of the insights in the tiles at the bottom. So I'm just going to click on one of these to show you an example. So in the context of DLP, we've highlighted, in this case, about 6 or so insights that we'd like you to prioritize your investigation on. And let's just click on the first one as an example here, which is specific to the top users that are contributing to incidents within your tenant. Again, someone who's recurringly hitting those policy matches. So what you'll see in here is, in addition to giving you some additional detail around the actual user involved in the incident, we also give you an incident workflow. So you're able to actually track this as you're taking actions on these incidents within your tenant. So for example, if you're moving it from active to something that's actively being investigated or resolved, or if you believe it's a false positive, you can dismiss it as well. In line, and this is kind of the powerful insight and action part that we've done, is in line to the actual user showing up in this view, you can also take the associated inline actions. So for example, you may want to notify the user that they're violating your company's or organization's policies. Or you might want to take a more aggressive action like resetting their password. And these actions are now inline for you in the same experience. In addition to linking this framework back to the actual report, we've also created a pivoted view into the Explorer, which is the rich exploration experience that Phil touched upon in a demo earlier. So now you can go from doing the basic investigation for the user to any other activities that user may have performed within your tenant at the click of a button. So that's just one example of how we've surfaced some insights from insights and aligned recommendations from a security and compliance center perspective. As you click upon the dashboard tile within the report section, you'll see many such examples outside of DLP as well, some of which I think Phil touched upon from a spam perspective. This is, of course, one view for you to monitor activity within your tenant. Another way for you to do that is to leverage the inbuilt alerts that we have natively within the security and compliance center. So real quick here, what I'm showing you here right now is just the default out-of-the-box alerts that are available to you within the security and compliance center. And as you can see, all of these are on by default. Let's really quickly click on an example here related to mail forwarding and redirect. This is a very common one that we get questions on. And you can see that it's on by default. You have the ability to scope it to a set of users or recipients that you may want to send the alert to. And a great example of how we're leveraging these alerts within the construct of the Security and Compliance Center is the mail flow. For those of you who are involved with mail flow related administration, we now have the same rich insights and inline recommendations also showing up for mail flow. So taking the example of the alert that I just showed you, which was around forwarding, mail forwarding rules, you'll see within mail flow, you have an insight here on the right that speaks to the volume and composition of the forwarded domains in your tenant. So if you really quickly click in here, you can see all the different domains where mail is being auto-forwarded to from your tenant. So kind of tying into the alert construct. And then you obviously see the same alerts being surfaced in the context of mail flow as well. There's also other rich insights from a mail flow perspective, including mail queues that can show you any latency associated with mail flow in your tenant, as well as your TLS usage, which for some of you who are familiar with the security, you want to see how much of your traffic is going through TLS 1.0, 2.0, or no TLS at all. So you have all those rich insights now available to you. Now, of course, the Security and Compliance Center is one way for you to consume alerts and monitor activity within your tenant. You also have the option of leveraging ASM, which is what we call Advanced Security Management. And I'm really excited to announce today that we're actually rebranding ASM as Office 365 Cloud Application Security, or Office 365 CAS, aligned with our Microsoft 365 brand. When it comes to Office 365 CAS, we made several investments in the last few months, including exposing additional activity streams through Office 365 CAS. And this includes services like Power BI, Teams, as well as Yammer. So now not only can you look at your traditional Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive related admin activity and user activity. But you can also look at admin and configuration drift across Teams, Power BI, and Yammer. And in the construct of Power BI, you can also look at any data exfiltration risks that you may have within your company. Aligned with our rich exploration experience within the activity log, we've also added a new activity type filter. And this filter really helps you perform some grouping activities around the activity policies or activities you may want to monitor in your tenant. For example, if I type in Yammer here, the filter is smart enough to only sub-select the activities that are specific to Yammer. And you can use this across the construct of the different workloads that you want to monitor using Office 365 CAS. One of the other cool things we've done in Office 365 CAS is also integrated with the Azure Active Directory. So you can actually see all your AAD groups are not automatically synced, or in some cases, you can actually invoke a sync directly into Office 365 CAS. And this gives you the ability to then scope your activity policies to specific high-value employee groups within your organization, like, for example, executives, Office 365 admins, as well as external users. We get that a lot in terms of questions, is how do I look at any activity from external users within my tenant? So you now have the ability to do that through Office 365 CAS. Last but not the least, we've also added some exploration experiences within the actual alerting experience in Office 365 CAS. So I'm looking at an example of an anomaly detection in CAS right now. And let's just click on this general anomaly detection. This is actually an admin account that logged in from an IP address that was tagged as a Tor IP, which means they either used an anonymous proxy or a Tor browser. And what you can see in this case is it also registered an ISP that had never been seen as accessing your tenant before. So let me really quickly click on one of the configuration changes that this admin made in the construct of this session. And you'll see you have two additional experiences that you can leverage now, including the user tab, which now pivots from that alert and shows you all other open alerts and activities for that user within your tenant, as well as some additional metadata around what access groups, what access roles they have within your tenant, and which locations they may have access to your tenant from. In line here, you have the ability to take user actions like suspending the user or requiring the user to sign in again. Related, we also have an IP address related exploration experience. We know an IP address is also a very helpful tool for a lot of security analysts and admins. And similar to the user construct, you can see all other open alerts or activities from this IP address within your tenant, including activity over the last 30 days. As you can see in this case, you see the tags for an anonymous proxy in Tor browser. Similarly, you can also take several actions aligned with the IP, which is whitelisting it or blacklisting it in the construct of your monitoring. So that's a quick wrap-up of some of the few features that we've been working on from a security management perspective. Again, the focus has been admin productivity, as well as inline suggestions and recommendations that drive successful investigation and resolution of your security events. With that, I'll hand it back to Rudy.
Thanks, man. So while we're getting set up for the next set of demos here, let's get the slides back up. I just wanted to touch on a very simple example that was there in the demo that is so hard to do today before some of these enhancements come out, which is we often get the question, where are my users in the cloud sending their emails? And if you just think about that very simple question, like which domains are they sending their mails to? It's such an interesting insight for security, but such a hard thing to get whether you're on-prem or in the cloud. And you can imagine this is a perfect example of where cloud intelligence, we can just bring that data together, crunch it in the cloud, and give you that very simple insight, which is, here's the pie chart of where the mails are going, and you can kind of scratch your head and say, yeah, I'm not sure why anyone's emailing Gmail accounts from my tenant, or maybe an account that says it's private@gmail.com. So you can start to then reason through this sort of black box of data. And again, another very, very interesting use case of should you block that, should you examine that, should you put DLP on top of that policy so you can get alerted, you can take a look. So that was just an example that is so simple, but is obviously missing from so many scenarios that's an interesting one that we get excited about all the time. And so you saw a lot of new stuff. I'll again call out a few things over here. So in the Compliance Center, you saw the issue callouts where we from the pattern examination, sort of the crunching of the data, we can now really just surface some of the things that we think are interesting to you. You can take them and you can work on workflows from them, or you can decide to sort of ignore them and have your own workflows around them. Configuration suggestions, so a lot of security issues that we see in the cloud tend to end up being legacy configurations. Maybe when moving from the on-prem system to the cloud system, it sort of came along with you. It leads to phishing mails getting through. It sometimes leads to malware getting through, mails being allowed out. So we're going to surface those to you so that those are ongoing proactive insights, and those are not one and done. Those will continue to be active monitoring for your tenant that you'll get just as part of being in the cloud, and we'll raise those to you so you have someone sort of watching your back if that's what you want to react to. And of course, digests and reports and enhanced slicing and dicing of the data Sumit walked you through. On ASM, I thought it was a little funny that Sumit was most excited about the name change that we announced today, but it's kind of a deeper sort of meaning to it, is that it's not just the name change itself, it also represents a lot of the CASB functionality that you come to expect as higher-end security capabilities. They're built right into 365. You can get them out of the core, and that's the signal there. You saw a lot of new workloads for activity that are already just out-of-box supported. Yammer, Power BI, Teams, these are just all part of it. The big push around Teams, so you see this all natively supported out of our management planes. AAD groups, user activity, we have a new data center here. There's just a lot to go through, so do visit those sessions if those are interesting. And then there's one piece that I'd like to specifically touch on this slide, which is today we're also announcing the preview for a new service called Compliance Manager. We're quite excited about this because the success we saw around Secure Score, the stat I entered this sort of section with, you can imagine this is a score, this is a ability to evaluate how are you doing on compliance. And so your ability to understand, your controls that are required and your adherence to them or what you're missing is what the Compliance Manager score brings together for you. It recommends where you need to be. It takes a look holistically in context of GDPR. It takes a look holistically in terms of the data centers you're in, the controls that you upload to us. So we take your input, we take our assertion of where you are, and really tries to steer you towards a compliance posture that is much more measurable with your score and that you can track your improvement over time. All right, so check that new service out when you get a chance. And with that, we're going to enter our fourth quarter, our final section, not least, which is data compliance. And Nishan's going to walk us through, again, a bunch of new stuff here. But I wanted to start out, again, with a stat that is sort of mind-boggling here. If you look at the first chart on the left, you can see how fast data governance is growing within the service. And data governance, for those of you folks that are thinking about it deeply, you'll understand why. And if you don't already, it is really having a hygiene. It is having a great sort of management system for what data you want to keep, what you want to throw away, what you want to use to manage your risk around your data. And so you can see with the growth there that there's this sort of initial push a large number of organizations have as they reinvent their work structure to get all the data in, get everyone productive, get it all stored. And then you got to think about how you want to manage this data. And so that's the graph on the left. And the graph on the right is the one that, of all the stats I portrayed today, the one that appeals to me the most, which is that the blue line shows you the continued aggressive increase in the amount of data coming into the cloud that isn't generated in the cloud, but people want to use the same tools, the same compliance manager functionality, the same policies that we have to manage their non-365 data. And the time to import, the fastest rate at which we're bringing this data into the cloud. And so people are really seeing the cloud intelligence, the TCO improvements they're getting in the cloud as a great way not only to manage their Office 365 data, but to bring in all their non-365 data as well and help them with this one dashboard view of managing through that. So Nishan, why don't you take it away?
Great. Thanks, Rudy. How's everyone doing so far?
Ready for the fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter, right? Fourth quarter. Here we go. You always finish first. Fourth quarter. OK. So really excited to be part of the engineering team. My name is Nishan De Silva. I'm going to take you through the next few minutes to kind of talk a little bit about what Rudy said about what is data governance as we think about this. we see there's an uptick in the service, and it's really about what Rudy said and what we're hearing from customers. The data is exploding, right? We know that. And as we think about the digital transformation that Satya talked about, and he also mentioned about security needs to be the center of what we do. And that's why when we talk about data governance, it's about what you keep and also what you don't want to keep. That's really simply put what we are talking about data governance. As part of data governance, we wanted to make sure there were some fundamental pillars that we were focusing on. And as we see, there are 3 core areas we will continue to invest in. One is around import. How do you bring data into the service, and how do we bring that in intelligently? Second, when you have the data, we talk about proactive or active governance. How do you govern the data inside the service? And then as we have the data there, how do you actually take that and monitor the data? Now, it's interesting because as we talk to organizations from small organizations to large organizations, data governance means many different organizations. So that's why we interlay this governance concept with the various personas, from whether it's an IT administrator who has the end-to-end responsibility for governing the data, or is it a compliance manager that works with, and I'll talk about that around with GDPR. And also, how do you also have a records manager if there are retention policies that you need to set up? And finally, the actual business user, what capabilities, like Alex talked to you about classifying information, adding labels, etc. And I'll tell you how that all fits in together with data governance. So as we drill deeper, there are some key areas that we'll continue to invest, which is around intelligent import and around classification. As Alex mentioned, we talked about manual, auto classification. We want to even go beyond that to look at what some of the intelligence machine-assisted learning capabilities that we have. Then finally, around retention. When you go through the document lifecycle or data lifecycle, when you get rid of data, do you want to get rid of the data automatically? Do you want to do a manual disposal? Or do you also want to have various event triggers? And then finally, how do you monitor this data through access governance or through what we call something, we talked about the intelligent insights we have. Another area under monitor that seems to be getting a lot of, I would say, surprise insight is something called supervisory review. So what I like to do is to take a few minutes, one, to talk you through event-based retention, what we are investing there. I'll show you what we're doing around supervisory review, and then I'll finish off the GDPR. So with that, let me escape out of my system here and go into my demo environment. Now everyone has seen the Security and Compliance Center, and as Alex did, I will go ahead and create a label. And as I create the label, I'll focus on the retention capabilities of a label. So let's go ahead and give it my favorite gaming system here. And then I will go ahead and enable retention. And now you can see that I can enable retention. I talked to you about some of the capabilities that we have around manual disposition. But also what we have is now the triggers that we ship. The new capability that we are working on is called event. So I can now say, let an event trigger. Many organizations realize that when you have retention working, actually these triggers work outside the system in transaction systems like HR systems, SAP, etc. So here's where now we can connect those triggers happening in another system over to Office 365. One of the things that we'll be doing as part of our shipping process is that we'll actually ship some of the actual events that will happen that are default events like employee leaving the company, project close, etc. here. But to showcase this, I want to show you something that we've been working with a partner where let's say that you have an employee who has left the organization. And now this is obviously not Office 365. You can see from the screen. This is our lovely SAP. And so from SAP, you can basically trigger something where an employee leaves the organization. And what happens is when that trigger happens, then that document that gets created for the employee termination is behind the scenes already captured in SharePoint. Now, what else is happening here behind the scenes is that we had created an event that is automated through SAP. So anytime that trigger happened, what happens in Security and Compliance Center is that we come over here and we can then see automatically through our APIs of Security and Compliance Center, we have triggered that event. And when you do a refresh, you can see that event that was created in SAP is now immediately triggered here. And from here, we can run that service and go and take a look at what's happening in that document. So just to show you what this means is, remember when Alex talked about those labels, I created an event-based retention. I created the event. What happens in SAP is already automated. The connection is already there. So all you do here is that the event trigger happens automatically, then it will go and apply retention. So just to show you seamlessly a manual process where you have to go into SAP, you have to go into your document management system, you have to go to the employee letter, all that is automated through this event-based retention. We are just getting started with this scenario, very excited about it. You can create your own events inside Office 365, but if you want to have automations, we are working to make sure that API is available for you. So that's just to show you the power of looking at records that happen in a transaction system that is triggered through our data governance capability. The second thing I want to show you is around our capability around surveillance. So surveillance is something that many organizations need to do, especially in the financial sector, where if you want to look at transactions between a person and a person, or between a group and a person. And the reason for that is that it may be an internal investigation. It may be for a broker-dealer. So especially with regulations from SEC and FINRA, there are specific regulations you need to comply with. So here, I can very quickly come in and create a case. And then I can go through and figure out who I need to supervise, and then determine who the communication is, what percentage of communication that I want to review, and then also looking at the various triggers. So here's where you can come in very quickly to go through these 1, 2, 3, 4 steps to create a supervisory review. And then the ultimate experience for that is right here in your mail. You can go take a look at that correspondence is tracked, and then you can actually take a look at those correspondence right here. And from there, you can drag and drop them into what is compliant, what is not. So here's very quickly, we are tracking that information, and we are able to now put them into the different buckets. So when there is an audit or a regulatory request, you can do this capability. So very quickly, as part of Office 365 in data governance, supervisory review is an area that's by default that you'll be able to use. And here's an opportunity not only for financial organizations, other organizations to use that too. So those were two capabilities. Just want to recap: event-based retention from transaction systems, and then also supervisory review capabilities where you can actually do internal investigations or for regulatory submissions, etc. Finally, I want to talk about another capability that and Rudy mentioned to this, and also Aleem, is around GDPR. Very excited about the capabilities that we have here, because imagine what we did with when Alex talked to you about all those labels, and then we looked at what we're doing with alerts, notifications, data governance, bringing it all together. We, as Microsoft, have an opportunity to really take a look at all these capabilities and really address GDPR issues. How we are addressing GDPR issues are 4 pillars. One is the actual content itself, because remember, as we looked at all the content that we get, we can look at the way people are tagging the content, etc., and what's going on with the content. We also learned today about how the users, we can track the users, what they're doing, what their behavior is around supervisory review, etc. And then we can also look at some of the other capabilities around what threats that are going on that we talked about. And then finally, because we can do all these capabilities, it's easy for us to think about the data subject request. So this is really exciting for us to see, to bring all these capabilities. We, as the data czars who are looking at what's going on, and you as the data custodian of your tenancy, we can give you the capabilities to bring these features together. So very exciting how we are doing this capability, and I have one of my colleagues in the audience, Deepak, who's been working on this capability, but I think we are super excited about taking everything that we saw today to bring it all together with GDPR. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Rudy, and thank you so much for your time.
All right, thanks, Nishant. So while the slides come up, you know, GDPR, I got it, thanks. GDPR is a place where we are seeing a ton of requests for help. Folks are trying to follow the policy. Folks are trying to follow the sort of the regulations that are evolving. And if you think about it in terms of data discovery, activity discovery, threat protection, all of these pieces we walked you through earlier in the sort of the 3 quarters up through the 4th quarter in terms of capabilities. And the GDPR sort of application or the GDPR help we can provide from 365 is to really bring these together in an experience and in a set of capabilities powered by some of this cloud intelligence to help you discover that content, to label the content as you kind of walk through it, set up the right policies, the retention. So this really builds upon the data governance capabilities we'd have in 365 for a while and up-levels it with sort of the continued push on intelligence and giving you time back, productivity sort of enhancements. And so you should start seeing these roll out in sort of preview end of this year, early next year. And our hope is that really by sort of May 25th, 2018, you've had some runway with these capabilities. So again, we saw a lot there. I'm going to start wrapping up. So Nishan covered the demo. So in data governance, of course, we've had a bunch of capabilities around retention, policy labeling. You saw event-based retention. You saw supervision. The point here is data governance in 365 is a deep set of capabilities, not just a shallow sort of management system. You'll be able to learn a lot more about that this week. E-discovery, discovery of content for your tenant, tough problem. You know, you got to go find this data across a distributed system, but we do it well. We have a bunch of systems that we're improving here. And so you'll see that this week you can learn about non-365 data can also be imported into these systems so that the same experience that you have, the same audit that you have, the same roles, you can provide that sort of an e-discovery experience not only on your 365 data, but also your non-365 data. And then with advanced e-discovery, you get the power of analytics and cloud intelligence to sort of quicker figure out what is the relevant data for your case versus what's not. And you'll continue to see a lot more in this space from us over the end of this year and heading into next year. The last piece I'll touch on here real quick is an update on a capability that is available for general consumption starting today. This is the ability to bring your own keys. I alluded to this earlier in the presentation. You can bring your own keys starting today to 365 for encryption, for use with RMS, for use with key recovery scenarios. And of course, when you do that and bring your own key, we provide all of the audit, all of the information around who has access to that. And then, of course, we'll be verifying the service through a SOC audit over the next few months. So this is pretty exciting as well because we've had this service in preview for a little while. Starting today, I definitely ask you to check it out. All right, I wanted to close with this. I sort of separated the 4 quarters with 4 interesting statistics. This is my favorite statistic of it all. And it's the one that I think captures all of the pieces we showed you today, which is if you take stock of what we do today in the service, 95 million, I've rounded down, not up as usually these presentations do. I've rounded down to 95 million active seats are protected with information protection that is part of 365 today. These are our security capabilities, these are our compliance capabilities, these are our audit capabilities. So there is a ton of folks using the 365 service to not only get to their collaboration and productivity scenarios, but to actively protect their data that they're generating in 365. You should take a hard look if you haven't already looked at it in terms of all of the capabilities we showed you today and then what's in the service. And with that, I'll let Aleem.
Yeah, so just to wrap up, and we're really the beginning, still the beginning of the week here. So the first, as I just said, beyond just the coverage amounts that Rudy talked about, you sort of have the updated approach with intelligence, but also the pace of innovation. I would sort of describe, the team as they've sort of developed these capabilities, the pace of innovation is really going up and getting faster. So for example, 2 of those things that we talked about today, threat intelligence and data governance, we just launched those in March. We just launched them in March. We're 6 months out, and we're already releasing a bunch of capabilities. And so you're seeing the pace of innovation across everything increase as we go forward. When you have that happen, you have to make them easier to consume and easier to use. And so a lot of the investments you're seeing from the team is, how do we actually consume these things much easier? How do we make it easier for our customers to put them in place, right? How can we automate things for customers? And so you're seeing a lot of investment there. And last, what I'll leave you with is, we have a number of sessions here throughout the week, and so I encourage you to go and deep dive into the topics that you're interested in. There are people from our fast track team that are here that help you get started with those things. We have our team of folks here who are going to be at the booth and other sessions all week. So let's take advantage of this opportunity to connect as we go through this week. And I will call it, we had a little error on one of the sessions, but there's a session on Friday, which is Insights into your Office 365 mail flow. I think it was titled something else. I'd encourage you to go back and look at your schedule. Because one of the things we talked about was that data of where your mail's going. And we have a bunch of new insights there. So you can actually go home from that session and go look at what is happening with my mail flow, answer questions about where is data going, is it being emailed securely, what is happening with your system. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you guys for all of your time today, and hopefully we'll get to engage with you throughout the rest of the week, and we have a bunch of resources here in case you need them. Thank you.